Hands on the hood. Right now. Judge Marcus Ellis was roughly shoved against the sleek black sedan by Officer Brady as he yelled angrily. Brady sneered. Nice ride. You steal it? As onlookers slowed down and watched warily. Unnoticed by Brady, Marcus calmly put his hands on the car, while his eyes briefly rested on a prestigious gold courthouse parking permit that was subtly displayed on the dashboard. If you think respect should never be based on appearance, please leave a comment. You won't believe the instant karma this story has, so tell us where you're watching from and hit subscribe right away. You don't want to miss the next action. Marcus had previously been the target of suspicion just for being black. Despite his stellar record and well-known career, he had frequently experienced the hurt of condescending looks in elegant settings, doubtful murmurs behind his back, and minor humiliations from those who only considered his looks. Although each instance exacerbated a silent pain he carried alone, Marcus had learned to tolerate disrespect in silence and without anger. Even though Officer Brady was still publicly humiliating him tonight, Marcus remained composed and resolved to deal with this ongoing injustice in a calm but effective manner to make sure that this would be the last time. Judge Marcus Ellis is, "My name, officer." In a dignified but firm voice, Marcus said, "Please check the registration calmly." Brady mocked Marcus's composed declaration with an outspoken laugh. "You? A magistrate? It's funny. You're heading downtown." A few passers-by paused, uneasy but silent. Some interested, some uninterested. With dignity intact, Marcus stood tall, but Brady completely disregarded him, yelling for help as the humiliation persisted. Marcus looked defenseless, his dignity apparently useless against Brady's haughtiness. Marcus's serene eyes, however, remained unwavering, subtly laying a strong trap of truth. There was a noticeable increase in tension as viewers silently hoped for justice that they felt was on the horizon, but feared would never materialize. The tense scene was illuminated by flashing lights as Officer Brady, smugly confident in his assumptions, held Judge Marcus Ellis against the car. Unaware that the dynamic was about to drastically change, onlookers gathered, phones raised, and quietly recorded Brady as he continued his humiliation. Marcus's cool, collected face was momentarily illuminated by the headlights of another patrol car as it slid silently to the curb. Brady looked back with a sense of self-satisfaction, certain that reinforcements had come to bolster his alleged triumph. But when he saw exactly who got out of the approaching car, his grin wavered a little. When Police Chief Angela Ford calmly emerged, the muttering crowd immediately fell silent. As Ford approached him purposefully, Officer Brady's stance tensed, and his expression changed to one of bewilderment. The chief's eyes briefly locked with Marcus's, and they nodded subtly, a gesture that Brady missed, but that bystanders saw clearly. Despite his attempt at confidence, Brady's voice trembled a little as he said, "Chief Ford, this man was caught operating a stolen vehicle. He's babbling on to me about being a judge." Chief Ford cut Brady off in the middle of his sentence with a gentle but firm hand gesture. She asked a single, subtly devastating question in a calm, measured, authoritative voice. "Do you know whose car this is, Officer Brady?" Brady paused, looking unsurely at Ford and then Marcus. "Well, no, but..." Ford's voice remained steady as he continued calmly. "Judge Marcus Ellis is the owner of the car, assigned to him specifically by the city courthouse and prominently displayed with a judicial permit, which you obviously failed to notice." Silently but powerfully, the words rippled through the crowd like heavy stones into a pond. Brady's face went completely colorless as the full impact of his error hit him, and his eyes widened in horror. Chief Ford turned slowly and spoke to the crowd in a firm but gentle manner. "One of the most esteemed jurists in our city, Judge Ellis, has presided over important decisions pertaining to civil rights and police accountability. In order to counteract the racial profiling that we have seen here tonight, his courtroom has established precedents across the country." There was complete silence as everyone in the room realized how big the revelation was. When Brady realized too late how disastrous his haughty presumptions had been, he visibly shrank. Silently but obviously, his co-workers took a step back, refusing to be associated with his shame. Throughout, Marcus Ellis remained composed and straightened his suit jacket as the tide turned sharply in his favor, not by coercion, but by the truth alone. He spoke softly but firmly as he calmly met Brady's terrified gaze. "Officer Brady, what you did tonight exemplifies the very injustice that I have devoted my professional life to eliminating. Maybe now you'll see exactly why this kind of work is still important." The profound silence was profoundly transforming. Sensing that there would be no violence or rage but only accountability, dignity, and clarity, onlookers gently lowered their phones. Calmly, Chief Ford moved closer to Brady, his voice low but firm. "Officer Brady, please move aside right now. Respect for all, not just some, is required by your badge." Marcus stood silently, respectfully allowing the power of this revelation to reverberate silently, forever redefining justice for all witnesses present, while Brady slowly withdrew, humiliated, but fully accountable. Now that the truth was out, there was a significant change in the atmosphere surrounding Judge Marcus Ellis. He was no longer seen as a suspect, and he commanded attention with a quiet authority that came from his presence, rather than by using force. Once silent or doubtful, the crowd now looked at him with renewed reverence. While some watched in wonder, realizing they had just witnessed something far more significant than a botched traffic stop, others lowered their eyes in silent regret. Chief Ford turned back to the assembly and spoke in a firm but respectful tone. "Judge Ellis has more than 15 years of experience in this city. Laws have been changed, wrongs have been made right, and officers like Brady have been held accountable in his courtroom, not out of resentment, but in the interest of true justice." No fanfare, no applause, just a strong, acknowledging silence. A city councilman who had come through the chaos stepped forward and gave a respectful nod. "The municipal reform decision that ended our city's stop-and-frisk policies was written by Judge Ellis. This is precisely why his work is important, as you witnessed tonight." Brady stood erect, his eyes downcast, his former cockiness a shell of embarrassment. He searched for words but couldn't find any. His body language conveyed discomfort under the scrutiny of a man he had wrongfully humiliated as his hands twitched slightly. Marcus refrained from boasting. He didn't grin. He just stood motionless, staring into Brady's eyes with conviction, which was far more powerful than anger. Controlled, laser-like, and morally upright conviction. After adjusting the cuff of his shirt, he showed off a judicial watch that had been given to him during his 10th year on the bench. It glinted quietly in the last of the sunlight, a silent testament to wisdom, service, and well-earned power. "That's a judge?" a young black teen in the crowd whispered to his mother. With tears in her eyes, the woman gave a slow nod. "A real one looks like that." For the last time, Chief Ford looked at Marcus. "Sir, we owe you an apology on behalf of this department and this city." Marcus retorted quietly. "Acknowledgement is important, but no apology can undo the harm. Let's make sure that this is not the end." Every witness realized then that Marcus Ellis was more than a judge. He was silent, firm, and unflinchingly real, the epitome of earned power. Judge Marcus Ellis let out a slow exhale, his face composed, calm, and intent on establishing a precedent rather than seeking revenge. His tone was clear and measured as he turned to face Chief Ford. "Chief, I humbly ask that Officer Brady be put on administrative leave right away, while his behavior is thoroughly investigated. I also anticipate an internal examination of departmental training procedures, body cam footage, and any previous grievances related to his badge." Without hesitation, Chief Ford gave a nod. "Judge Ellis, consider it completed." With immediate effect, emotional outbursts and raised voices were unnecessary. The silent finality of the decision was more impactful than any yelling contest. Brady's eyes were hollow, and his jaw tightened. He appeared for the first time to fully comprehend the consequences of his actions, not only to Marcus, but also to the public's confidence in the badge he wore. Two senior officers approached Brady and put a firm yet gentle hand on his shoulder. He made no effort to resist. There were no protests or words, only a slow, embarrassed walk toward the patrol car that was no longer under his command. Still assembled, the crowd silently observed the reversal with awe. Now they had lowered their phones. They were observing a correction and rebalancing, not merely a takedown. With genuine eyes, Officer Thompson, a rookie who had been silent throughout the altercation, walked up to Marcus. "Judge Ellis, I should have spoken up, but I didn't. I went cold, but now I see it. Not only was what transpired incorrect, it was systemic." "Then let this moment shape you," Marcus said simply as he turned to face him. "Although it is cozy, silence is never neutral." A soft silence descended upon the street as Officer Brady was led away from the scene. Respect, awareness, and the silent start of accountability had replaced the tension that had pervaded the atmosphere just moments earlier. Judge Marcus Ellis maintained his composure, standing as a symbol of justice upheld without wrath rather than reveling in his victory. What had just transpired was a change, not a show. One that was palpable to all in attendance. The whole room had been rebalanced by the weight of what Marcus stood for. Chief Ford turned to face the gathered crowd after taking a deep breath. "Let today be more than just a passing moment. Let it leave its mark on our culture. We serve the law. We are not above it." There was no cheering from the audience. Rather, there was a silent nod of heads and a few gentle applause, not from enthusiasm, but from respect. Like a solemn chorus of agreement, the noise was muted. A young boy, perhaps 12 years old, was standing and holding his mother's hand. His eyes were wide and curious as he glanced up at Marcus. "Mom, does he actually work as a judge?" "Yes, and one of the best," she said in a whisper while bending over and grinning. Officer Thompson stayed close by, clearly affected by what had happened that evening. He walked confidently up to Chief Ford. "I would like to apply to be a member of the IE, New Accountability Task Force. I am unable to ignore this. I no longer want to be a spectator." Ford nodded firmly at him. "You have a seat at the table." Marcus turned to the audience and acknowledged them one last time. People who had questioned him, rejected him, and now looked at him with open admiration met his eyes a few times. It was a silent but heartfelt apology. He didn't have much to say. His presence was more powerful than words. "This isn't just news," a local reporter who had been silently recording the scene told her cameraman as she closed her notebook. "This marks the start of something better." It was, too. Because the restoration of equilibrium, not Brady's dismissal, was the true triumph. It was witnessing justice be served, not in court documents, but in the open, on the street, where everyone could see it and be impacted. Clarity was gained in addition to vindication. It served as a window into what integrity, truth, and respect truly look like when they are free to stand tall without having to shout. Judge Marcus Ellis's story continued to quietly reverberate throughout the city weeks after that memorable encounter on the side of the road, not because it went viral, but because it touched the hearts of those who needed it most. After an internal investigation revealed a pattern of racial profiling, Officer Brady was formally relieved of his duties. However, that wasn't the true legacy. The true shift was deeper and more subdued. Under the direction of a diverse group of legal experts, psychologists, and civil rights leaders, the department introduced a new program called the Ellis Standard, which requires officers to complete empathy-based training throughout the city. It was a cultural re-education course rather than merely a checkbox exercise. Credit was never requested by Judge Ellis. He refused to be interviewed. However, his name was uttered with silent respect in courtrooms, police academies, and community centers, because he didn't have to, not because of what he said. After initially remaining silent during the altercation, Officer Thompson now led weekly talks with cadets. He frequently started sessions by saying, "I watched injustice happen, and I decided I'd never be silent again." Even Jalen, the young child who saw Marcus that day, wrote an essay for school called "The Day I Saw a Real Hero," which his teacher read aloud at a youth gathering in the city. Everyone who heard it was moved by one line. He didn't shout. He simply stood there and improved everything. Once weary from years of bureaucracy, court employees reported a change in courtroom etiquette. When Judge Ellis walked in, people stood up straighter, not out of fear, but out of genuine respect. He became a living example of how humility and power could coexist. Months later, a mural that was painted by local high school students rather than a commissioned artist appeared close to the courthouse wall. It showed Marcus standing under the arch of a courthouse, with the scales of justice and sunlight all around him. Below it, in tiny words, it says, "A microphone is not necessary for truth." Marcus once saw the mural. He nodded, grinned, and continued to move. He didn't turn around, since he was not required to. He wasn't a symbol because of what transpired that evening. It served as a reminder to the city of what a genuine symbol should look like. Steady, modest, and genuine. His legacy didn't stand out. It just stayed, etched into the people, laws, and values he subtly reshaped. As this tale becomes ingrained in your memory, consider, if you were Judge Ellis, how would you have responded? Have you ever made a mistake in judgment about someone and discovered it too late? Have you ever remained silent when you could have changed things with your voice? Although we don't always have a say in how we're treated, we do have a say in how we react. Please leave a comment if this story touched you. Tell us what you think. For more tales that highlight the unsung power of true justice, subscribe. Additionally, keep in mind, it's not necessary to be loud to show respect. It must be true.